Hello, and welcome to today's webinar. So you want to be a music teacher? A music education career discussion with Katie O'Hara-LaBrie. My name is Caitlin Rydell, and I will be running everything in the background for our session today. We are thrilled to host today's panel discussion with our host, Katie O'Hara-LaBrie, as the third of a three-part series. If you missed parts 1 and part 2, there will be links provided at the end of today's webinar. So let's get things started. I'm pleased to introduce today's presenter, host of our discussion, Katie O'Hara-LaBrie. Katie O'Hara-LaBrie is a composer, conductor, clinician, and cellist from Northern Virginia. An educator at heart, Miss LaBrie spent the past 15 years of her career teaching orchestra in Fairfax County, Virginia. She holds a Bachelor of Music in Music Education from St. Olaf College, where she studied under Stephen Amundsen, a Master's of Music in Instrumental Conducting from George Mason University, where she studied with Anthony Maiello. To Katie and our entire panel, thank you for being with us today.
All right. Hello, everyone. So, as Caitlin mentioned, this is the third in a series of webinars on careers, and this one's very near and dear to my heart as it's going to be centered on music education. So I was, I think, in the 7th grade when one day my orchestra teacher was late to class, and I got up there with that baton and I started waving my arms, and I was sold. Like, this was it. I was going to be an orchestra teacher. And I was. I went on to college, studied it, did it, loved every minute of it. For me, that wasn't the end of my path. That was just the beginning of my path. But what I want to do today is introduce you to people that teach band, choir, orchestra, general music, a little bit of everything, and hear about their paths and what you might do to become a music teacher. If you have questions as we go, feel free to put them in the chat, as Caitlin mentioned. But let's just go around. I'll start with Priscilla here. Tell us a little bit about, just very briefly, who you are, what you do, and your current position.
Awesome. Hi, yeah. So I'm Priscilla. I teach orchestra and mariachi at the middle school level out in Colorado. I'm primarily a violinist, and yeah, really short.
Thank you. And Katie.
I'm Katie Traxler. I teach elementary music, so kindergarten through 5th grade, and my main instrument was piano and percussion. I've also taught all the way down to 3K, and then in the beginning of my career also taught middle school band as well. But for the last 20 years, I've been in elementary, and I'm currently in Tennessee.
Awesome. And I believe you were also like in New York City area for a while as well.
Yeah, I started teaching in Louisiana, in South Louisiana, and then spent 15 years in Manhattan, in New York City, and in the Bronx. And then now this is my 2nd year in Nashville, Tennessee. So lots of different places. But
Yeah.
all memory.
Awesome. And then Maria.
Hello,
Girl
everybody.
Conductor.
My name is Maria A. Ellis. I go by the Girl Conductor. I'm a vocalist and I represent the choir world on this panel. I teach community high school choir in St. Louis, Missouri. I also have a community adult choir, adult gospel choir. And I used to have a community elementary choir, but everything choir, that's me.
Awesome. And we'll flip over to our band guy. So Robert.
Hello, everyone. My name is Robert Herrings. I'm from Cedar Park, Texas. I've been teaching at R.D. Henry Middle School my entire time of my teaching career. And so, yeah, director of bands here, and love every minute of it.
And I believe you're getting ready to perform at TMEA. Is that correct?
We are. Yes, we are. It's going to be good.
Very big deal. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then another one in the band world, but also representing our National Association for Music Education, we have Scott Sheehan.
Hi there. Thank you so much. Great to be with everybody tonight. So my day job, aside from right now serving as the national president for NAFME, is that I'm a high school music educator. I teach AP Music Theory, a class called Intro to Songwriting, which is sort of some elements of music theory, guitar, a really cool elective class called Rock, Rap, and Revolution. And then I also do jazz band, wind ensemble, concert band, and the marching band after school and all those sorts of things. And I'm also the music department chair for our district here in Hollidaysburg, Pennsylvania, sort of in the center of the state of Pennsylvania. You can think, Pittsburgh and Philly. We're sort of in the middle, not too far from Penn State University.
So, what does that leave? What don't you do?
No choir. That's up to Maria. No, but yeah, no choir and no orchestra. There's I have colleagues in the building that do those things.
Of course, but I think that is just a perfect example of what we do as music educators is that it's never just one faceted. Like there's always multiple facets to what we do in a variety of ways. So, my next question for everyone is just how did you get to where you are today? What did you want to be when you grew up? And did the future turn out the way you thought? Was it a straight path or maybe not? So we'll just kind of go around again. Priscilla, if you'd start us off.
Hmm. Yeah, so I actually I did orchestra in high school and middle school and played piano as a kid and I actually did not want to go into music. It was like I'll do anything but music and then I went to college, but I ended up taking all the music classes anyways because I was so used to it. So I was taking lessons, I auditioned for the orchestra, I did all that stuff. And I remember very vividly like an advisor for the engineering school was like, you should probably just do music because you're already doing it. So just go for it. And I did. And I was super excited. They put me in the music education program and I loved performing, but I also loved like learning about teaching and studying that and, doing all the research for it. So that really like fit really well with me. So there's that. And then once I graduated college, I thought like middle school was the thing. I was just going to do that. I ended up teaching high school for a little bit and I really liked it. And then I got into my master's program and then I got really into mariachi. And I would have never in my ever have thought that I would have, been starting mariachi programs and really getting into that either. So, definitely not really a straight and narrow path, but I've just loved every opportunity I've been given and have, loved what it has brought me in my career.
That's awesome. One thing that came to mind when you were talking was that, and this is good to know if you are maybe a high school student looking to be a music educator. If you do go to study it in college, it almost is like a dual degree because you're often in the music building doing the music stuff, but then you're also over in that education building learning about students and psychology and all these different things. Speaking of college, my husband went to college with our next panelist, Katie Beth Traxler. So tell us a little bit about that path for you.
Sure. So I was born into a family of educators. My grandpa was the principal at my school when I was growing up in South Louisiana. My Aunt Lynn was a kindergarten teacher. So my sister is a kindergarten teacher. She's 4 years older than me. And we spent every summer in my aunt's classroom helping her set up. And then at my own school, delivering textbooks, to every single classroom during the summer. So I was around educators my whole life and I loved it. And I was always there after school. And just it kind of spoke to me. My sister and I would play school when we were little. And so when I got into music, I started taking piano when I was rather little, class piano, and I loved that. And so for the first part of my life, I really wanted to be a piano teacher. And then when I got to high school, we had band, and I got really excited about that. And so because I played piano, they said, "Hey, go play the bells." And so I was really bored because I was a pianist, and so two mallets rather than 10, right? Like two notes at a time is not as fun as 10, right? So I started learning all the different percussion instruments, and I was very fortunate that I got to take percussion lessons. And so that kind of expanded into, band. And so instead of being a piano teacher, I wanted to be I wanted to be a band director. And I joined the community band in my town where I got to play with retired musicians and stuff like that as, like a 13-year-old, which was really funny and getting to know what they did. And so then I was like, yeah, I want to do marching band and do that. So in high school, I was in the pit for marching band and went to LSU on a scholarship for percussion and then minored in piano and then went to my elementary methods class with Jane Cassidy and walked in the first day with my whole percussion cohort and saw all these little xylophones, and they were orphan instruments. I didn't know that at the time, and I was like, what are these little baby marimbas doing everywhere? What is happening? Look at the tiny vibraphones. And at the end of class on that first day, I went up to my professor and said, I would like to be an elementary music teacher. This is what I'm meant to do with my life. So it was always teaching, and it was always music, but it changed throughout, so then as soon as I was done with I student taught elementary, and also and then when I got out, I had a band director job for a while during my master's program, working as a percussion director and an assistant director in a middle school band setting, and then did a lot of drum. I was a pit instructor. My husband was a drumline instructor. I was the pit instructor. We did a lot of that. So I did a lot of that in the summers and had fun doing that, working with the older kids. But my heart was just with the little ones. And so I got my ORF certification, level 1, right after I finished teaching. And after that, have been with elementary full-time public school teaching since then. And then in addition to that, my husband and I also had our own studio, Traxler Studios. We started our studio in New York, so we still got to teach private piano, voice, percussion, composition, all of those kinds of things. So we had that as our side gig. And I also worked for a different studio. Living in New York is expensive, so you have 10 jobs, right? So I also got to do that as well. And I was also a assistant director of the Manhattan Girls Junior Choir for a couple of years as well, which was a lot of fun. And so it was always education, it was always music, but it was, lots of different kind. And I think that's probably what we mostly find ourselves doing is you get in one spot, but then you do all the other things too, so that's kind of where I am.
For sure. And I know you've had some experience working with Carnegie Hall, as has our next guest. Maria has recently just conducted in Carnegie Hall, which is pretty ridiculously awesome. So tell us, Maria, a little bit about your experience and how you got to where you are and all that.
Well, I always knew I wanted to be a conductor. I always knew that. I've been directing a choir since I was about 12 years old. Like I was always the kid in the mirror listening to the songs, figuring out the parts. I mean, I was like the nerd because I would be up with my sister at night and we would sit and listen to the radio and we would try to figure out the various parts of these songs. And then we would teach them to our youth choir when we were at church. So I always knew I wanted to be in music, but when I was in high school, my teacher I said, I want to be a conductor. And she said, I don't know how to put you on that path, but you could be a music teacher. And I said, no, I don't want to be in a classroom. And so I studied business, still had a love for music, but studied business and worked for AT&T. And then my pastor wanted me to revamp our children's choir. And I fell back in love with it. And I told my husband, I said, I want to quit my job, but I want to go back and study music. He was like, no, we got kids. And I was like, I really, really want to do this. And so the next year, the job was laying off. But if they laid you off, they pay for 2 years of schooling. And so I took the layoff, started going to University of Missouri, St. Louis. They ended up paying for all 4 years because of some mistake. I'm gonna say it's because of favor, but some mistake got them paying for all 4 years of my college. And while I was there, they said, what do you want to do? They said, because we know you don't want to teach in a classroom. And I said, I want to travel around the country and do workshops and work with choirs all around the country and around the world. And they was like, well, nobody else is doing that. And I said, well, watch me. And I didn't have a plan of how I was going to do it, but I've just kind of forged a path that allows me to do exactly that. So I've been very blessed to be a clinician around the country and do some things internationally via Zoom during the pandemic. And that got me on the stage at Carnegie Hall. I made my debut this past June. So I've had a very, very blessed career, and we just got started. So I'm excited to see what happens in the future.
I love it. So, they always ask the question, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? And the answer is practice, practice, practice. But apparently it's get laid off from AT&T. So yeah, you can do anything, guys. And just as long as that passion's there and that drive, I mean, it'll get you there. All right, Robert, tell us about you.
I actually grew up in a small town, and my family owned a church that we went to, or I shouldn't say owned, but they started the church, Pleasant Hill Baptist Church, and my great grandfather was the pianist at that church. So I actually started playing piano when I was 5 years old, and I was actively involved in the church and the church choir and those kind of things. And then I joined middle school band, and I remember going into middle school thinking I actually wanted to be a pediatrician, and I was all about this for the longest time. And after my first year of middle school band, I remember sitting at the dinner table with my mom, and she was asking how the day was, and I turned to her and I said, I want to teach band. And she was like, what? And I was like, I want to teach band. And she was like, well, you can do whatever it is that you want to do. We'll support you, whatever the case would be. And I thought, great. And I continued on that path, and I was very heavily involved in piano. So actually, when I left high school, I actually went to college as a piano performance major. And after my first year of college at Baylor University, I went into my counseling and I was like, I really think I want to teach band. And so I got back into it and got back on that path, and I minored in piano accompaniment. And as most band people do, when they all come out, they all think they're going to teach high school band and change the world, right? And so that was my path, and did not get a high school job after a couple of interviews, but my first job was a middle school job, and I fell in love with it. I remember thinking, I'm only going to do this for 1 year. And after that first year, I fell in love with the beginners, and just knew that this is where I wanted to be. So I have been teaching middle school the entire time. So it was kind of on the path of what I wanted to do. It kind of went in and out. I do believe, though, being involved, in the church and playing piano at such a young age really kind of pushed me into the music side of things. And I love every minute of it.
I love that. And so I also came out thinking I was going to be a high school orchestra teacher, and I got a middle school job, and I loved every minute of it. I've since now taught every level. I ended up back in middle after a while. So I've had those different experiences, and that's something that I think is really interesting. I really feel like some of us are meant to be elementary teachers, middle school teachers, or high school teachers. There's just a different countenance that comes along with it. I always like to say I like the middle schoolers because I feel like the kids are a little bit more pliable. Like they still need those routines, but they're not so set in their ways. Like, and that just vibes with me. And I can be goofy, and it just works. But what's it like teaching high school, Scott?
It's great. It's just like it is in the elementary or the middle school. I think you're right that you find that place, your niche, where your personality meshes right and connects right. But for me, I was really young. I probably 6 or 7, and not piano, but it was trumpet. My dad played the trumpet in high school, and he'd get his little cornet out and toot around the house, and I'd, oh, show me, show me. So I wanted to always try that. So I got involved right as soon as I could in band and chorus in elementary school, and really enjoyed that. But my path was to be an architect. I really had my mind set on architecture, and I will never forget this day. It was a Tuesday. It was in March in my junior year, and we were sitting in rehearsal and band class, and we were playing "On an American Spiritual" by David Holsinger. And were you there when they crucified my Lord? It's that's the text, or the hymn from it, and just playing along like we'd done any other day. But this feeling came over me right as the band was starting into that climax and so on. It was like the roof lifted off the band room, the sun shone down, you are meant to be a music educator. It was just literally, it was that powerful to me that day. I remember, like, it was the best feeling I'd ever had in my entire life, ever. And probably one of the best from, even since then, because I still tell that story and get chills about it because of how profound that was. And I remember going home and telling my parents I was so sad after school, because I was walking home, and that was over, like that feeling was, had gone. And I said, I think I want to be a musician. And my mom said, oh, you want to be a magician? Good. You can do tricks. That's funny. They were a little on the hesitant side. So I have a degree in marketing because because my parents wanted me to have a backup to what I was going to be able to do, because I might not be a successful band director. And so they wanted me to have a backup plan. So I went to Clarion University and did the dual major in music education, and they had a music business, a music marketing program there. So I was able to roll both in together and do that. And my first job coming out of undergrad was at a rural school in central Pennsylvania, and I was hired to be the middle school band director with the high school marching band as like an extracurricular. after school type program. And when I showed up on the first day, there was about 30 kids on the roster in the summer for the band camp, and 13 showed up, and we had a parade the next day. So it was a rough start, and they were not the like 13 gung ho, like I'm all in kind of music kids that we know. They were sad. I mean, they were just like, they were really deflated about what their program was. And I was there for 8 years, and eventually I ended up doing 7 through 12. The person that was at the high school took a different position, and so I had the what they call junior high school all together. And when I left, there were 188 kids in that little rural band program. It was a lot of fun, and we hosted Maynard Ferguson, the jazz trumpet player. We did all kinds of really cool things, just to expose the students. Got a jazz band going, got a lot of different things happening, and really did that. So it was I guess you could say, did my path waver? Not so much. I got to do a lot of amazing things all the way through. And then I was there 8 years. And now I've been at Hollidaysburg, about an hour away from that job, and which is a little more what I call a small town, sort of suburban feel, but it's a pretty small place too, in the big scheme of it all. Certainly not like St. Louis or somewhere like that. But and what I teach here, but I have been able to focus more on the high school aspects of music education throughout this program. And this program had, I guess, a fairly long tradition of having, a lot of music opportunities in the community too, which is one of the things that attracted me to want to change pathways. And I think that's something for, listeners to think about too, is you might find your dream job right out of the gate, or you might not know that this is your dream job, and there it is, because you thought you were going to do something else. And then sometimes changes come along the way, and I wasn't expecting to leave where I had been, but an opportunity came up. I took it, and I've been really happy here, and it was a good place for my family, and so on. And so it's, I guess, just kind of keep an open mind about where you're being led to teach.
Absolutely. I think and I like it. And, sometimes you find that dream job and you're just there, like Robert, but you didn't even expect that to be that way. And then sometimes you're just creating your own path, like Maria, or changing paths halfway, like me, so you just never know. One of the things that I think there's like a misconception of what a music teacher is. There's those memes that say, what my mom thinks I do, what society thinks I do, what I actually do. So what do you actually do? So obviously, yes, we teach notes, we teach rhythms, we, try to make these amazing memories like Scott had where the sky comes down and, everything opens up. But how do we create those moments, and what are the hidden talents that are part of your job as a music educator? I'm going to just kind of open this up, and if you want to just unmute and take it, feel free.
I always say I'm the conductor of heartbeats, because music changes the heart. No matter, and everybody gets to experience it. So we, as music teachers, I don't take that job lightly at all, because we really change the world in everything we do. If you go back in time, they talk about the art and they talk about the music. They may not talk about the math or the science or the social studies, anything like that, but they talk about the art and they talk about the music. And we know music is being the universal language. It doesn't matter what's going on. If somebody plays a song or somebody sings a song, it affects that heart. And I have the awesome privilege of being a person who gets to manipulate the sounds that change the heartbeat. I'm also a really good telemarketer. That's one skill that I learned from AT&T. I was an outbound salesperson, one of the best in the company. So I'm really good at selling and selling ideas, which is very much needed in a classroom or when you're trying to talk about a certain song or a piece of music. So that's my hidden talent, is that I'm a salesperson.
Well, and Scott mentioned, you have a degree in marketing. So how does that play into your job as a band director?
Well, I mean, the recruiting aspect from early on, as I told you, I started with 13 students, and we built that, it was all about understanding the brand, and what you were trying to build, and understanding your target audience and your market, who your market is. And so that marketing degree paid off huge early on, and certainly with my other roles in NAFME and PMEA and things like that, that's helped a ton too to understand things. I think another one of those hidden aspects is you're a salesperson, but you're an advocate, and that's so important for all of us. I think in our music programs is I sort of describe it as a cycle. If the students are having an amazing experience, just absolutely amazing music, and they're getting so much out of it, they tell their parents get excited. Oh, hey, tell me more about what's going on. They become supporters. Then hopefully they will become advocates and stand up for your program, because so often we need people to stand up for music in our communities, at our school boards, administration, all that sort of thing. And so I think that's just another way another one of those hidden things that we are, and the other thing I tell student teachers all the time, we're event planners, especially at high school, maybe a little more at high school or middle school but we are like full-time event planners. We're going from one concert to the next trip to the MPA to the whatever it is, playing the pep band at the basketball game the other night, just all the things. There are the things, many, many things. And that's just kind of part of the gig. And that business background helps there too, fundraising, all those other sorts of things too. So I'll stop there, because I'm sure I want to hear what everybody else has to say too.
Yeah, Robert, you're literally in your classroom and like just came off of rehearsal. What are some hidden talents and hidden skills that are part of your job?
Well, I think, both Maria and Scott said a lot of the things that, I think I always tell everyone that we run a business. And it's really, it's really what we're doing on the day-to-day basis. I'm in the philosophy of teach the whole child. So not only do we teach music in our classes, but I want to teach students life lessons that are going to help them well beyond my classroom. And I know that, middle school for me was a very tough time. And so when I embraced this middle school thing, I wanted to make sure that I created an environment that was going to help my students really grow and help them understand things like failing forward and how do we get better, and accepting that it's okay to not be perfect, in this, especially in the society in which we live in now, and you turn on the TV or the news or you surf the internet and everything's, you hear all these things, you see all the perfect things. So students come in and I just want to help them, create or help them understand that it's okay to be who you are and that it's okay to make mistakes and that this is a safe place. Sometimes I'm dad, sometimes I'm counselor, sometimes I'm, and I say friends, but friends within, appropriate relationships, right? I think we just wear so many different hats at different times within the job. And then, of course, there's all the other things, the hidden talents of the account. I call myself an accountant sometimes, all the money things that you have to do and all this that you have to take care of, and the calendar planning. I mean, it really is running a business. But I think, the biggest thing, in education is, for us is to help our students, again, teach that whole child, help them, prepare them for what is coming in the real world, because sometimes they just don't know. And for a lot of kids, band or your classroom is the safest place in the building, and they look up to us so much. The one thing I have learned over the years is that, they're going to have this 6th grade math teacher, this 7th grade math teacher, this different 8th grade math teacher. They come into my class and I have them for 3 years. So I get to see them when they come in and they don't know anything, right? And then we get them all the way through. And then, of course, I follow them on into high school and see all the things that they're doing after that, and then all the great things to do, in college. But it's so great to hear from the students and for them to say, the skills that I learned in your classroom is what helped me get through life and is what helped me be successful these days. And so I love to think about, teaching and all the aspect of just, teach the whole child. That is a big motto. Life lessons through love and music. That's what I always say.
Priscilla, I'm curious your perspective also as a middle school teacher. I want to say everything that Robert just said, because it's all absolutely true. The counselor, the financial planner, all these things, even just like teaching kids how to organize a binder, like that was so important, and it's a life lesson. It really is a skill. What else, Priscilla? Do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys all kind of covered everything. I was going to reiterate, like, it feels like you're running a business when you have a program. And then if you do double, right? So a lot of teachers do like band and orchestra, band, I do orchestra and mariachi. I feel like I'm running two businesses sometimes because it's, two groups of kids. I think the other thing is also like just communications liaison a lot of times, like just communicating to parents, sending out newsletters, like dealing with the drama and like, counseling like middle school angst and all of that comes with it too. But yeah, I think we just wear so many hats and have to do everything and just kind of run different aspects of our little business that we have. And then the other thing that I feel like we're getting more and more of is also like, hey, you need to be adding more like writing and English skills in your classrooms. And like now you need to be doing math because of the standardized tests and all that. So I think that is something I never really anticipated as much. And I just feel like it's happening more and more. So yeah.
Yeah, we definitely have to go with the flow of what's happening in the education realm and just what's coming down from the administration as well. And so that's always a challenge. And I think another challenge, especially from the elementary level, is you're not just teaching one band or two bands, you're teaching, 6 different grade levels. So tell us a little bit about all those hats you have to wear.
So I think one of the things that Robert mentioned about him having the same, you have the same kids 3 years in a row. I think one of the beautiful things that spoke to me about elementary is that if my students come in at kindergarten and they don't leave till 5th grade, I have them for 6 years. Pre-K, I have them for 7 years. They spend more time in the elementary school than in any other school that they go to, which is it's a really unique situation. Of course, all the schools now in the United States are very transient. So we also have students who come in we get new students every week, right? And they come and they go, but you do have a core group of students who live in the neighborhood who come, and you get to develop these relationships with them and their families and their siblings. And, when I was in New York and at the same school for over a decade, it was really an incredible experience because you become part of their family life. You go to their basketball games, you go to, you go have dinner at their house, like because you've had four of the siblings and like it's just you have them for so long, you see them grow up. But that's one of the hard things is that you have to jump from teaching a 4-year-old to a 10-year-old. The 4-year-olds leave and the 10-year-olds come in. So that mindset of like constantly having to jump throughout the day to the different, negotiating 6 different levels of curriculum that you're writing and that you're trying to follow and trying to assess and grade all those kids, when I had a school of 700 kids. That's a lot, 4 times a year to write report cards for all of that, and now I'm at a school with just 320. So I'm at a very small school, which is great, but it's hard to know every kid, and you have to know every kid because you see every kid. So that means knowing IEPs, knowing being a part of parent meetings, parent communication with all those grade levels. That can be a really big challenge. A lot of different hats to wear, especially also now making sure everything is translated into specific languages. But having them for that long is really awesome. But it reminds you of all the social emotional components that we teach in our class. Like when our kindergartners come in the very beginning of the year, they cry because they miss mom and dad because they've never been in school before. You're not teaching music. You're teaching, let's be a human together through music, through singing. You just sing the whole time with a guitar, you become Raffi, right? You like just embody Laurie Berkner. And so it's just this beautiful power that you just invite them and welcome them in. Um, because you really are like their second parent because they are terrified, and then you have them for years. And then, they go through the 4th and 5th grade right now where they're starting to be like, I'm going to have a boyfriend. And you're like, oh my God, so like you really do play that counselor role too. And, we are seeing a lot of issues left over from COVID and with behavior and, some struggles with students being away from their parents and away from their screens, which they're at home and stuff like that. So we're playing these parts of trauma-informed educators as well, not just music teachers. So it's a challenge to figure out how do you weave your music curriculum in and out of all that. And then the other hat's about the ensemble. So one of the great things about elementary is that whatever my passions are, I get to do that with my kids. So I teach general music all week. Everybody comes to me once a week for an hour. But then I also have a 4th and 5th grade chorus. I also have a 3rd grade chorus. I also have an orff ensemble. I also have a ukulele. We do ukulele in 4th and 5th grade. We do recorders in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. We do world drumming with everyone. Yeah, I'm a percussionist, so I love that. Then after school, we have a music in the brain keyboard class for anybody who wants to sign up. So it's like juggling all of these different ensembles and classes and beginner and intermediate, and then you have to have performances for all of them. You have to track attendance for all of them. You have to do communication for all of them, and you know how elementary is. Every parent wants a song and dance, so every grade level has to perform all throughout the year, and then you've got to do Black History Month performance and holiday performance and spring performance. So there's also that hat of event planner to the max. It's a bit ridiculous, but It's so great because the kids are being exposed to everything. And Scott talked about that exposure. You know, Robert made a comment that said, like, he gets them when they don't know anything. Like, we get in elementary school, you know, we get to expose them to everything and we get to help them find what is your passion. Where are you? A singer? Are you a player? Are you a drummer? Are you a composer? Like, what are you? And you get to help the kids find that voice, find their voice in music through a million different avenues, right? So you just have to figure out how to juggle all those and how to stay one step ahead of the kids in all of those things. But I think that's one of the beautiful things about elementary is that you can really truly make it whatever you want your classroom to be, because you're not like, I'm just gonna, you know, I'm hired as the band director. I'm hired as the choral director. You know, like there's a bit of freedom because the kids are just little baby kids. They don't, you know, they get just to do everything, right? So I think that's a lot of different hats. And then also you have to do bus duty and you have to do morning duty and lunch duty and like all these other things. Like I'm in charge of buses. Like I'm in charge. What? So there's all these other random things that have nothing to do with music that you have to become a part of the team. You have to be a team player and, you know, you just have to suck it up and do all those extra things that have nothing to do with music so that you can have fun in the music teaching part.
Absolutely. And like, I just love how everything everyone said kind of comes back to, you mentioned, teaching the little ones basically how to be human. And, and Robert said, the lesson through, life lessons through music. And Maria, also, commented on how just music is love and is life. And like, this is just, and so, yes, we are teaching music, but if you're going into this career, you have to know that you're going to be doing all of the things. And I think that's something that often gets forgotten, along the way. So with that said, what advice do you all have for people that are interested in a career in music? I'm going to start actually, let Katie Beth start, and just you mentioned you did ORF, so in the elementary world, if they're interested in elementary, talk about the different certifications or things that they might want to do, and then also just anybody can tag into that.
So one thing, so what's really great about universities, well, at least when I was there, is that my certification is K-12. So I did the band classes, I did the choral classes, and I did the one elementary class, right? But for elementary, you usually get the one methods class. And so if you know that that's where your heart is and that's probably where you're going to be called to be, then getting additional training in some of the more well-known approaches or methodologies is really important. So my heart is in Orff Schulwerk. I think that's because I was a percussionist, and so I love all of the barred percussion. I love the movement. I love the improvisation and the composition that's part of it. I love all of that kind of stuff. And so there are American Schulwerk Association. They are a great place. They have summer courses everywhere. And not only, even if you are not a percussionist, if you are just interested in elementary, it's a great way to become part of a close community of people who will help give you curriculum ideas, strategies on how to get the instruments out and how to store them, how to assign recorders. There's just so many little things. So going for that extra training, and there are 3 levels, and then there's master classes and helping kids learn how to compose, how to improvise, things like that, and the different modes and things. Getting training is really, really helpful. So there's 3 main ones that we use in that most people are the most popular, or Schulwerk is one of them. Which is a lot of instrument-based play. It's very play-based, which makes it great for elementary. Kodai, if you're a really strong singer and you want to build a choral program and you know that's your route and that's where your heart is, Kodai is an incredible way. And another incredible training. There's also 3 levels with that. I did my Kodai training at NYU. My ORF training I did various places in the country, and now I teach ORF training over the summers. But Kodai is very methodical, and it gives you a very clear outline of which pitch sequence to use in folk songs that you can use from around the world, folk dances that you can incorporate from around the world, how to use the Kerwin hand signs, how to sight sing, how to do all that. There's a big part of literacy in it. And then Dalcroze Eurythmics is also, it is less, there are less Dalcroze teachers in the United States than overseas, just because of the way that our American music education system is set up. But Dalcroze Rhythmics is another really great one that's a lot of fun, that has a lot of full body movement. And if we know anything about our kids, we need to get them up and moving because they can't sit still because they have no attention span. So Dalcroze Rhythmics is a really great way that focuses on the body as their first instrument. It does use fixed dough, which Kodai uses movable dough, or if uses whatever the teacher wants to use. So a blend of whatever. But those are three really important approaches and methodologies that offer trainings in the United States. Kodai and ORF are in probably every 50 states. You could easily find trainings for those. And there's different levels so that you can go. Dalcroze is a little more difficult to find, but they do have them at various places. There's also, if you, Music Will, which used to be Little Kids Rock, they also offer really amazing trainings so that you can learn how to do ukulele, guitar, drum set, and keyboards in your elementary classroom. It's also for middle school and high school, but they also teach you how to teach very basic skills, not through notation, but just through oral skills and physical playing. And so those are trainings as well that are really popular now too. So my biggest advice would be find one of those to start with, go that route, try it out, get your feet wet, use it, and then just as you want to grow your program and as you get interested in other things, then start to dabble in some of the other trainings as well. Because the more ways that you can offer a student the more ways into music, the easier it will be for a class of 35 kids to find their voice in that moment. And so if you do everything, then they'll know, oh, band is for me. Oh, I'm a drummer. Oh, I want to play piano. I want to accompany at my church. I want, they'll know. But if you don't expose them to it, and their parents and families aren't able to expose it to them, which is the case for most of my many students around the country financially, or just it's not available to them. The teacher is the first we're right. So we have to expose them to that. And so those are some main places. And if you have questions about those and you ever want to chat, I'm happy to give recommendations. I did my Dalcroze training in New York as well, but I'm happy to talk about that more.
Awesome. Now, Maria, your path, as we mentioned earlier, it wasn't the, straight and narrow, like do this, do this, do this. So what advice do you have for someone that, is looking for a career in music education and finding their path?
My advice is, as you're going through your schooling, look for what's missing. And if you have what's missing, then bring that to the table. For instance, my background is gospel music. I'm the daughter of two ministers, and that's the music I grew up listening to. So in my house, we never played Bach or Beethoven, but it was the Mighty Clouds of Joy or the Mississippi Mass Choir or Kirk Franklin and people like that. And when I started in music education, I didn't see any of that music. I would go to conferences and they had the jazz choir and the show choir and all these different choir ensembles, but no gospel choir. And so I wanted to make gospel music. I wanted to help get that on the scene more. So I started presenting sessions in my own state about gospel music and how we use it, and then now I'm able to teach those around the country. And like I said, even internationally now, because I found what was missing. So that's one piece of advice. My second piece of advice is to come in this field and be you. We don't need you to be anybody else. We need your creativity. We need your passion. We need your heart. We need your skills. So come in and be you. You don't have to try to be anybody else. We need what you're bringing, because what you bring is very different than what anybody else has. Your thoughts, no matter if you think they're out the box or not, bring them. I have a lot of women who say, I never thought I'd see a day when somebody would call themselves a girl conductor and be able to get away with it. And I was like, yeah, we doing that. But now that's not a thing. Now we have girl composers and all types of different things because somebody thought outside the box. So bring yourself to this field. We need you. Music is ever changing. And if we all stay the same, then we don't grow with the music. So we need you to be you and bring it.
Oh, okay. That was amazing. Any other advice anyone wants to share on how to get a career in music?
I'll just jump in really quickly with all the different trainings you can get. I would just shout out to Music Will. I did that training last year and it was great. And the thing I really, really love about it is that it's like mostly free. Like it's really, really affordable for anybody. Really, and they really work to do that. And then you also get like bonus instruments for your classroom, which is like just an additional plus, you know. And then for the orchestra world, you know, Suzuki training has been so beneficial to me. I started that in my undergrad because my professor was like, you just got to do it. And I was like, okay, sure. And I've used more of the Suzuki training to really just like teach technique and like the beginners and all that than anything else. So that was super, super beneficial. And then yes, just you know, bouncing off of what Maria said, kids know when you're not authentic. So if you are not yourself, like they can tell immediately and then they're not with you anymore. So I think my first couple of years of teaching, I really tried to do what other teachers were doing because it worked for them, but it didn't necessarily work for me. And so it really, you know, I had to figure out that I just needed to be me and do that. So, okay.
Three real quick things. Number one, remember we teach music through band or through choir or through general music. You know, it's music, capital M. You know, I just sometimes I think we pigeonhole ourselves as to I'm a band director and you know that's all I'm going to know or do or only focus there. But man, over my career, I have learned so much from hanging out with Maria or hanging out with you know choir people and orchestra people and that's the thing, we're musicians and we're music educators, capital M. So that's number one. Number two, just be involved. You know, I think I'll give a quick plug about, you know, NAFME and the state MEAs and, you know, there's so many exciting things happening and the all these associations, Orf, Kadai, Dalcro, Suzuki, Music Will, all those that we've mentioned so far. And then all the MEAs have so many great professional development opportunities, you know, just all sorts of things, conferences, opportunities for students, and so on. And we've got a lot going on at NAFME too, on the advocacy work and you know, equity work that we're doing right now, and small schools. In fact, after I bump off of here, I'm on to another call tonight for our small schools initiative and AI. I mean, that's another thing that you know we're looking at, and so there's just so many different things. So I just say you know be involved as much as you can. And then, you know, the last thing, you know, what advice would I give? Just love your kids. It's all about students. You know, Robert, I love that. You know, it's about, you know, changing the world through love and music. And that's it. I mean, that's it. And just, you know, love those kids. Because in so many cases, I hate to say this, but it's reality. You may be one of the few people that bring them love in a day, and you get to do it through music. And that's how we give a voice to the voiceless and a home to the homeless, you know, in so many different ways. And so that's for me, it's just all about the students. So gotta, those are my three things.
And I'll be really fast and I'll just kind of go around the route of, you know, especially for young people that are interested in maybe teaching band or high school, you know, middle school, high school, familiarize yourself with instruments. You know, I would encourage you to get out there and start learning. You know, you don't have to be proficient at every single thing, but you need to be able to, you know, help the students be able to learn how to navigate that instrument and how to be successful in that. One of the smartest things someone ever told me is they said, if you're ever the smartest person in the room, then you're in the wrong room. And so I would encourage you to get out and observe, especially if there are great clinicians or great, you know, conferences going on. You know, I'm a big proponent of, you know, going to the music education conferences. As Scott said, there's so much great professional development, and usually the people who are presenting there have really great information. And I think that's a really great way for you to not only network and beginning to make connections. And in this profession, you know, it is a lot of connections, you know, as well. And so making those connections and building those relationships with other music educators is really great. And just kind of what everyone else has said, I'm a really big proponent on relationships. I think what makes our program so special is the relationships that we do have with students. And I think that when students know that you truly care for who they are as a person first, they will do anything under the sun for you, and they will want to be in your classroom. And so love them for who they are, accept everyone for who they are, you know, and just teach them up and give them all the information. And I always tell my students too, don't be afraid to, like, I've stood in front of kids and go, you know what, I don't really know the answer to that question, but you know what, I'm going to go find out. And I will pick up the phone and call someone that I know. So be honest. honest, be real with them and be who you are. And I think they said it the best, do not try to be someone else. Bring what you are to the classroom. And it's our world is so special and it's always changing in so many great ways, and it's because we have so many great new ideas because people bring all this fresh information and the youth that comes with all of it. And so I just encourage you to continue to be who you are, and get out there, get to those conferences, network, go watch people teach, master teachers, take great notes, all the things, because you want to have as many tools in your toolbox as you can so that when you stand in front of students, you can be successful.
And you can do that whether you're a brand new teacher, a rising teacher, or a teacher 50 years in. Like, it is so important to always grow, and that's part of our jobs as educators. I'll just, from a one technical aspect, I always recommend to students, if you don't already play piano, learn the piano. It's just so helpful across the board. So that's my one little plug for that. So we are going to go into some questions now. And so if people have questions, go ahead and shoot them in the Q&A. We do have one here already, and that is just asking if there's any suggestions on pointing someone in the direction of conducting. I know that was kind of what I wanted to do, and I didn't really, like, there wasn't an undergrad degree in conducting. Eventually I did get that master's in waving my hands, right? That's a thing. But Maria, I think this would be a good question for you. Talk to us about how you started your path on conducting.
Well, like I said, I've always knew I wanted to be in the front of the choir. And now after I had my bite at the orchestra, now in front of the music, I just love being in the center of the sound. I just love being in the center of the sound and being able to manipulate the sound. So I always knew that. My path was through music education. So my path being a choir person, I would always watch my conductor for the choir, and I would always like after rehearsal, I would say, "Why did you move like that? What does this gesture mean?" I found myself being very inquisitive, and then in St. Louis, we would have like the choral music experience, which was all about conducting and things like that. So I took all 3 levels of that. I took 2 in St. Louis, and I took 1 at Michigan State. So I could work with Dr. Sandra Snow, who is an incredible conductor and a woman. So I got to work with her. And then I would go to the American Choral Directors Association. I would go to those conferences and I would watch the conductors. And I always just sat in rehearsals and watched people and watched how they changed the sound. Then when it was time for me to go to get my master's, which is what I'm working on now, I found places that had really strong conductors and followed those people. So if conducting is something you really want to do, find the people who are already doing that and watch those people, study those people, the people who you really, really love their styles. See if you can find a way to study with them. And some people, even if you don't go to their college where they teach it, some people offer like one-on-one sessions. I know one conductor, Dr. Anthony Tracy King, during the pandemic, I was like, you should teach an online conducting course. And he was like, I never thought about that, but I was able to work with him and I never had to leave my house. So finding those schools and things that people who are already doing what you like to do, find those people and study and watch what they're doing. That's the best advice I can give about being a conductor. If you need any assistance, reach out to me. I'm more than happy to help you and connect you with people that I know. You're muted. We can't hear you, love. You're muted.
It's so good all the time. We have 2 questions here in the chat so far. I don't know if we're going to have time for all of it. But one of them is about just advice about getting to be a music teacher in the United States. This is someone coming from overseas. So that ties really into Scott and NAFME. Can you talk to us about some of the resources that NAFME has for helping teachers become teachers?
Sure. On the resources link for this webinar tonight, I saw it was in the chat. There's a bunch of links from some of our different groups, and on there's a link about certification requirements for each state. And so if you click on that link, you'll be able to see what the requirements are for each of the different states. Now, with that being said, right now there's a teacher shortage. There is a huge teacher shortage in this country, where we are looking for music educators in so many different ways. And so in addition to checking out what state requirements are, depending on where you're living and what state or even community that you might be looking for a music teaching job, I would reach out to the school and ask them what the requirements are, because right now there are a lot of different pathways to getting those certifications and so on. And even emergency licensure is happening in many, many, many states. So I would say reach out to the schools and where you're at and what those requirements might be. And then also you can reach out to the Music Education Association. Like if you're in Minnesota, reach out to MMEA and they can point you in that direction. So it's really governed by at the state level in that way. And then also on those links, we have a NAFME Career Center, so you can look for open positions that are available now. There's some things there, and then there's also information about how you can, just look for a career in music. In addition to NAFME resources, I also want to mention just this week we launched a new resource called teachmusic.org that is in a coalition of many, many organizations: ASTA, ACDA, NAFME, NFHS, the NAM Foundation. Music for All is one of the big supporters. I think there are 22 organizations. I'm sorry if I missed you and you're listening for your name, but it's called teachmusic.org. Really super easy to find, and lots of great resources on this new website for teachers, for students, for school counselors, and for parents. And so there's a lot of information there as well. And NAFME is a big contributor to that work. And so, I think it's a matter of just trying to find out where do you want to be, and then start asking the questions to the Music Education Association, to schools and so on, or reach out to NAFME. We would be happy to help you individually as well and connect you with somebody.
Well, this has been really, really interesting to hear everybody's perspectives on music education. I'll just give another plug that we have had 2 other sessions on just different types of careers in music, and there are just so many paths to this. So, Scott just mentioned, just how many jobs there are out there, whether it's music education or just the music field in general. If your parents are saying, "Oh, I can't make it, make it in music. You're going to be a magician, right?" Is that what Scott's parents said? There are so many jobs right now. So if this is where your passion lies, there is a place for you, and I hope that you all follow it.